friendly.
Hello, thank you. Thank you to be here. So many people are leaving. You have to stay. My name is Théophile. I'm coming from France. I'm the general manager of a media company called Eclypsia. Eclypsia is we produce content on video games and esports, mostly on Twitch. We have 3 web TV. We manage YouTubers. We have a website, which is one of the major French websites on esports. And the idea of my talks is how to show you how to make your game more esports media friendly. I will not lecture you on what is esports and how to get in esports, but I would like to explain how important it is and useful for you to use the media by being esports. So esports is very big, as we know, but most of all, esports is a very strong media and marketing lever for your communication. Esports is competitive, which means people will exchange about your games. It has a social dimension, so they will talk about your games. You can be on Twitch, which is today the most powerful media lever for esports, and it's free to get on Twitch. And most of esports games are free too. And the really interesting part is that esports produce extra media coverage, because now the public media, the mass media, are very interested into esports because it's such a big phenomenon that your games can benefit from this extra media coverage. Video games shines better with esports because it gives a better image of video games. It changes the image the public have on the gamers. Esports shares lots of value with sports. It has performance. It's considered like a sport. You have team spirit, and that gives the message you're presenting about your game to the media is stronger. Also, esports bring people in huge stadium. We have all seen the image from the League of Legends LCS competition. So it shows to the media that video game can gather together huge audience, just like football. This means lots of money is coming to the video game market. Lots of people are going to play those games, and it brings new opportunities for video games. And also, we all hear that all those pro players, they earn lots of money. So the media are really considering what's going on. Something has happened in the video game market, and there's so much money going into the esports business. There must be something going on. So if you have the esports label on your game, the media will be more interested into what you are doing for free. So before that, we are gamers before esports. We have those guys sitting on couch and playing FIFA, and everybody said that gamers were not having a good life. And now with esports, we are having those kind of teams that are like a boys band. They are having lots of money. They are very nice. They get lots of girls, and they are practicing, and they are doing extraordinary things in front of huge audience. So it's a completely new message from the video game market that esports has. Well, what's funny, we've been fighting for the last 20 years saying that video game was a kind of culture, and now in fact we just discovered it's more than a sport. But there's lots of money to get into sport, and the media will have more interest into the esports business than they had in the video game business. So which media for your esport games? Of course, we all know that YouTube is good on the media and the video, especially for the PC market. For mobile, you have to communicate on your selling platform, but no game can exist without being on YouTube. And as Yuri said, if you want to have your esport game live, you have to find influencers to play on your game. Maybe you will have to pay for this content, or you will have to produce it yourself. You will have to find influencers of all sizes. Some small, and the biggest one you have to pay for them, but you have to be on YouTube, of course. But you don't find that much esport on YouTube. You find much more esport on Twitch. Twitch is king. Twitch is the king of the esport market. So to go esport, you really have to be on Twitch. You have to produce content on Twitch. It's not very easy because the Twitch audience is following only a few games. And they don't follow too much mobile games, except maybe the biggest Clash Royale tournaments. So it's very difficult for mobile games esport mobile games to be very strong on Twitch. I think it would take still quite a lot of efforts. We know that, well, you have the exception of Hearthstone, which is a PC and mobile games. So the position of Hearthstone is a bit different. But if I check the 20 or 40 first Twitch audience any time of the day on Twitch, you will not find too much mobile games. It's because the Twitch audience is more PC-oriented and more core gamers. For a developer, it's very important to work very closely with these two platforms to make sure you integrate, for example, the ability to stream on Twitch when you develop the game. And of course, on your media strategy, TV is the Graal. If you manage to have large esport events, you can maybe appear on TV. It now happens more and more. We have League of Legends, which is going to be pushed on TV. We have Counter-Strike. We have a deal with Turner in the USA. I don't know if any mobile games has been broadcast, mobile game competition has been broadcast on TV, but this, of course, gives you huge media appearance, huge media coverage. And this can only happen if you manage to have huge esport events with lots of people in the stadium, brilliant staging, and then you can get this free media coverage for your game. So what the gamers are looking for when they're watching esport game? They need to have star players playing the game, and they need to have entertainers. So you must make sure that your game is playing by all kinds of personalities, champions, famous team if possible. We all know that now on the esports you have international team like Team Liquid, G2, Fanatics, Vitality, and all esport mobile games should try to exchange with those teams and convince them to play the games. And usually you don't have to pay for that. For the moment, you have Hearthstone teams, you have Clash Royale teams. I don't know if you have international big team playing all the games, most probably. But this makes sure that you have the audience watching your game being played on Twitch. The second thing, if you want to have an esport game or media, your game needs to have skill. Make sure your game needs skills to master. It must be difficult to play, or even Hearthstone, which don't need to be quick, but you must think quite a lot. It's not a random game. And you must make sure that the best player will win the competition. And also, the player that enjoy your game must look at the top players to learn. So they will be interested to learn how they can be so good. And also, you must make sure that your game has produce some competitive matches. If the better side win on the first minute of the game, this doesn't make a very interesting competition. And that's what we can see on League of Legends. If you follow League of Legends tournaments, many things happen during the match. And you never know who's going to win at the end. And also, you have, in the game, you must have some mechanisms like best of 3, best of 5, intense match like we have on Counter-Strike. The round are played with 15 matches. So many things are happening during the games. And so the people watching the tournament on Twitch are very interested, and they will stay and follow the game up to the end. So make sure your esport game gives interesting show and challenging competition. Okay, what media-friendly esport games need? You need to have a spectator mode. I don't know how it works on mobile games, are more from the PC culture, but we have seen some esport game without spectator mode. That was the case with FIFA until this year. Sorry? Almost critical ops. So now you have a spectator games. And as I say, it must be easy to stream on any kind of platform. The game must be challenging, no pay to win, otherwise nobody will follow the game on esport. It must have a certain level of complexity, and if possible, if it's multiplayer, it's better to have a role for each player, like we see on League of Legends, because it will make it more interesting to follow, and each player will have his own role. The public must understand what's going on. Well, in esport, we're talking about quite complex games, but if you have never seen a game of League of Legends, of Hearthstone, after a few minutes you will understand a bit of what is going on. Overwatch, for example, which is an excellent game, nobody can understand what's going on because the action is going too fast, so it's not very interesting to follow. The game is really good. You don't agree? But I think that the main problem with Overwatch, compared to Counter-Strike, for example, where it's very easy to follow and understand what's going on. So if you want to be sure that the audience will follow your game on the media, they must understand. You must have a sports approach to your game. That is, you must be able to deliver data that can be used and exploited by the casters. Because if you have a long day of tournaments between each play, the caster must explain what has been going on. They must give figures. They must give statistics. Maybe they can use a small motion replay to explain to the audience what's going on. So you can really build a media coverage that is like classic sports, where people spend hours explaining what's going on, even if they're only playing around with the football. And you must have, of course, absolutely efficient cheating control systems, because if cheating is possible, your game will never be into esports. The last question is, how can my game be used by brands for communicating and for partnership? That's something that we, of course, see as a media company. Many brands are coming to us and say, I would like to communicate toward gamers. Help me choose which esport game is interesting to communicate and to which audience. And I guess that is something that most developing companies do not consider or integrate when they start working on a game. Where will your game be situated on the marketing system? Why is it important? Because if your game ever achieves a partnership with Coca-Cola or Adidas, it will give you maybe lots of money and also extra exposure. And also, at the beginning of a development of an esport game, usually you don't look for partnership, and you leave the events developers. You're going to go and ask ESL, for example, to set up competition for you, or maybe you can start your own competition. But it took years for Riot to set up his internal competition and the LCS. And Blizzard also is now starting to do this for the last 2 years. EA is doing this for FIFA. But for a small company, it's a community that's going to create the events and championship. And the communities, they need money. So either you will bring this money to organize the events, or they will go and talk with the brand. I say, I'm doing a competition on Critical Force. Can you finance me? And they go to Coca-Cola, and they will ask Coca-Cola to finance the project. And of course, if your game is violent, I'm not sure that Coca-Cola will accept. These are companies we are working with in France. We have a partnership with Coca, Axe, the perfume. They have just had a partnership with a Counter-Strike team now in France. We know Red Bull, for example, is doing a partnership with Versus Fighting Games. So where is your game on this criteria? Where is your game standing for? Is it violence, Peggy 18, or is it childish? Of course, if your game is very violent, most brands will not agree to communicate on them. Very few brands now are going into the violent games such as Counter-Strike, even if the audience is very, very large. Is it complex or is it fun and easy? Usually when I go and talk with brands in France, They don't like complex games. They're very interested into the esports. They say, oh, we have seen a stadium full of people. We want to communicate towards this audience for our brand. Which game is the best? So I say, well, the biggest audience is on Counter-Strike or League of Legends. So they'll say, too complex or too violent. We don't want. We want to go to FIFA. FIFA, everybody knows. But the problem is that the esport audience of FIFA is very small. So at the end, they say they want to communicate to the biggest esport audience possible, but they don't want to communicate on violent games. So you have to find, you will go on FIFA, you will go on versus fighting game, but the audience is too small. Do you want to go to a core gamers audience, that's a classic League of Legends, or do you want to go to a casual audience, which is much bigger? And also, what kind of image do you want to communicate for your brands? Do you want to go for the legitimate esports scene? That's the choice Orange, which is a very big French provider, has done. They have a program for esport players, but they only want to communicate to the core gamers because they've decided that it would take 3 or 4 years to be legitimate on this scene. So they're starting from the core. But other companies that want directly to communicate to the largest casual audience possible. And they will go to FIFA or some casual game, but it's not really esports. Another question you could ask yourself, there are lots of money to gain from betting companies, because betting companies, they believe that gamers are the potential bettors of the future. So they really want to communicate toward gamers, but most of publishing companies don't want to hear about betting partnership with betting companies. In France, we have the FDJ, Française des Jeux, with the largest organization for betting, and they have started a very large media plan to communicate on esports, and they started to do this with Clash Royale. And they started, that was a 1 million budget program, media program, not with us, but sadly. But 2 weeks after they started the partnership and they started to organize competition on Clash Royale, Supercell called them and say, what are you doing? You just stop immediately. We do not allow you to communicate on our games. So they had to change their whole plan. They had to go for versus fighting. So now they're doing their communication on Street Fighter 5. But the audience is 10 times smaller. So as a developer, you have to consider where you will put your game on which marketing position you will put your game, because this will bring money at the beginning from outside partnership, and this will help esport organizers set up competition with outside money before you are able to set up your own competition tournaments and events. I think I'm done. So if you have any question, I will be glad to answer.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Théophile. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, there's one in the front row here.
Clash Royale is purely pay-to-win game. So Clash Royale is purely pay-to-win game.
They made it an esport game. Still. But they put so much money, they can organize very big events, and people like to watch it, because there's something interesting to see. So it's true, it's a pay-to-win, but the audience is very large, and it's interesting to watch.
Yeah, and it's super expensive, $20,000 to have full account to start it from beginning. You know,
yeah.
It's like very expensive.
But still, they have tournaments.
Very expensive pay-to-win game.
That could be true. But it's very present on YouTube and Twitch. It's one of.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the audience?
You have our 2 main YouTube channel here. We have released a web TV on YouTube 2 weeks ago, and we have decided to release it on YouTube Gaming. Our other web TV are on Twitch, because that's where the esport audience is. But we wanted to try to go to the mobile audience, which is younger, and which is mostly on YouTube Gaming. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. A round of applause for Théophile.